Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today. We'll be talking and really dissecting a lot about the streamlining of the client engagement portion of tax preparation. So we'll outline the impact of what streamlining and consolidating tools can do for your firm. We'll discuss some of the biggest challenges we see around it between customer conversations and what we see in the market. And then we'll also show you some ways that ShareFile can solve these with some live demos in the product, so you can sort of get a feel of what ShareFile is and what it could do for your tax preparation processes. If you're new to ShareFile, I did want to take a quick opportunity just to introduce you to who we are and what we do for our accounting profession base. So we have a long history in accounting itself. We actually started our product over 20 years ago this year. We actually founded our product trying to solve an accounting profession problem, which gives us some of our deep roots inside of the profession itself. Have then since, expanded into different industries and verticals. However, we still have a very much deep-rooted concern and active customer communications and relationships with our accounting base. What we do is we help streamline a lot of the document collaboration that happens usually with clients inside of maybe certain services like tax, audit, you name it, bookkeeping. And we really help streamline what that process looks like through those document workflows, really helping you simplify the client processes and deliver a really modern experience doing it that way. We have a little over 7 million active users every day, depending on ShareFile, to work with their external parties, such as clients. And then we also have a big component of client users inside of the product, about nearly 2 million active client users that use our client portal to activate with those service providers. We are also an AICPA member discount partner, and we are also certified for SOC 2 under AICPA as well. So another good, compliance call out if you're unfamiliar with ShareFile. Moving on to sort of what we're here to talk about today, which is really around the streamlining and consolidating a lot of the client engagement portion of that tax prep process. So I think it's really important to first, set the stage of why that really matters and why it's essential for accounting firms, because it could really impact a lot of the efficiency, maybe client satisfaction and scalability of your firm. I think these three things are consistent between all of these items that we're talking about today, and really is sort of the reason why this should be important if it's not already highlighted as your firm's goals and priorities. First being impacting revenue. So maybe you have several different tools that you're using today and you're paying for multiple systems. That could be e-signature, document requests, file sharing, client portal. It all starts to add up really quickly. So consolidating and reducing your technology stack and that cost really helps simplify that from not only training, but IT support and any kind of management that goes inside of those tools too. Next, strengthening client experience. So obviously clients don't want to juggle multiple logins or really wonder where they need to go or need some direction because there's so many tools that they're using. Or maybe you're using a very manual process today. Maybe it's email, call, text, not a very centralized place to be able to manage those client relationships. So a single user-friendly portal creating a really frictionless experience is really going to help with boosting that satisfaction and retention. And then lastly, scaling for growth. And I think this is a major pain point I think that many of you guys are probably going through today, as we see in the market, is you're constantly growing and you're trying to figure out new ways to help that growth be really successful for your own firm. So as your client volume increases, a lot of the disconnected tools you may be dealing with become those bottlenecks. And maybe consolidation really allows your firm to scale operations without really helping you increase that headcount or overhead, knowing that there is such a talent shortage in the market today. So all of these are good to keep in mind, especially as we're going through each challenge today, and something to consider. I think starting out with this stat, I just wanted to highlight it, how crazy this is. But I think as you're going through your day-to-days, you probably feel a lot of these pain points still today, even if you have some of these tools. But 49% of accounting professionals are still spending 1 to 2 days communicating with clients to gather necessary information during a typical engagement, which is insane. But what's more insane is 36% have spent 3 to 7 days. Again, doesn't seem that bad when you're managing maybe 1 or 2 clients, maybe in the off season, but during busy season where you really need to be working efficiently and still scaling and growing and servicing your clients in the best way possible, this really becomes challenging. And that's sort of where we're rooting our conversation in today, is sort of solving a lot of those challenges around the client interaction portion of that tax prep process. We'll first talk about the challenge of process standardization and then sort of showcase how ShareFile is solving for that. So process standardization and maybe organization inside of those tax engagements are obviously very critical, but also very extremely difficult to get right. So I think these 3 things sort of highlight some of those biggest pain points we see around this. First, the lack of standardization of maybe those engagement templates that you're using. Maybe it's a custom template that you're having to tweak every single time, but we see that many firms use those outdated templates for maybe engagement letters, organizers, or checklists. That can also lead to inconsistencies across your team, increasing chances of errors, omissions, or maybe even non-compliance with regulations. Something that maybe you don't even have a template today. Maybe it's completely ad hoc inside of email or Excel list that you build for your clients. There's no source of a single truth here without a centralized system to really track that engagement process. Maybe a lot of your teams are working in silos, maybe sometimes duplicating work or slowing down the entire engagement, asking for where those files live, just giving the complete visibility on what that client engagement progress looks like. It makes it really hard to identify delays or gaps in real time as well, especially if you're working in a bigger office where you're working with maybe several partners or different locations. And then lastly, difficulty tracking a lot of those status and deadlines. So they can usually, engagements involve many moving parts. So a lot of the data collection, the prep, the review, the e-file authorization, and payments as well. So without that standard tracking and visibility you'd be getting on the backside, it's really easy for items to start to slip through the cracks or maybe be completed in a very different order that really slows down that client lifecycle. So Quentin, I'd love for you to showcase sort of how ShareFile is approaching this, especially in a tax preparation process.
We should have made the hop over to ShareFile, and I'll walk you through it. First off, ShareFile added the solution for tax engagement. If we head over to that area, you'll see that this is going to essentially be that single source of truth, right, and allow us to create all of our engagements from here. As we go to create engagement, though, I want you to see that we provide a series of templates for you for the most common, but we know that not everything's going to fall neatly into these buckets. And because of that, we also allow you to create or modify your own templates. For example, when you head into the editor for it, you'll see that within the editor, I can see all of the pieces that usually make up that template. I can edit any of these, like the questionnaire, for example. If I wanted to, I could go in and change the questions that are present, or even create a new information request or document request. If we create a new document request, I can either do that item by item, or if I have a list of items like that Excel spreadsheet like you were describing, I can also import those items in bulk. So it's really easy to start from some of the prefix templates we give you and then customize those to match your firm's needs. Once I have everything kind of set up how I want, I can save this for myself, but I can also share it with other individuals in my firm. So again, we can make it really, really easy for everybody to be using the same standardized templates. So just again, making it really, really easy for everyone to follow the same processes, even if that process is one that doesn't fall neatly into the 5 buckets we created for you automatically. So
yeah, we see a lot of customers also utilizing this to help train not only their employees, especially new employees, but making sure that they're all using the same process and templates So no errors are made by that. And then your clients are getting the same experience no matter who they're working with inside of your firm. So we'll move on to the second challenge, which is onboarding clients. I think I was surprised by I think it was only 3%. People said that they're still struggling with this. This is probably a good thing. I think this is the biggest change we've seen over the last year. But client onboarding obviously is one of the most critical and sometimes the most chaotic part of a tax engagement. And if it's not really managed well, it can cause a lot of downstream delays, maybe errors, and client dissatisfaction. They don't really know what to expect, especially working with a firm for the first time. That can have a really big impact. So these three things, again, some of the biggest things around onboarding those clients, lack of standardized onboarding process. I think this sort of goes along with a lot of the templates we were just talking about, but many firms don't have those consistent, repeatable onboarding workflows, what that looks like, how it's outlined, and can really result in an inconsistent experience across those clients and staff. Maybe missteps and delays in gathering a lot of that client info from the very start. And then also manual and time-consuming intake can also involve a lot of manual emails, PDFs, spreadsheets to gather that client data. Can really slow down that process, increase a lot of the admin overhead we're all trying to get rid of, and then also leads to mistakes or lost information. And then lastly, unclear expectations for the clients too. So clients don't always really understand what they need to do, when it's due, or how to send documents securely. Even when we see customers do this really, really well, there's still missteps from the client when they're not reading everything, and they're a little lost on what that process looks like. And I know that can be frustrating from both your staff and then also the clients too. And it really creates that unnecessary back and forth, and really causes bad first impressions, especially for those new clients too. So following the same story and showcasing one of the capabilities inside of ShareFile, we'd love to show you how we're sort of solving this in our own solution for tax preparation, with making sure that onboarding process is not only easy for the staff, but also the clients too.
The first thing I wanted to show you is we recently added the Client Hub. What the Client Hub allows you to do is either create individuals or companies. And in the process of doing so, you can, for example, list out who a service team will be for an individual. Or if we look at an organization, for example, I can also see all of the contacts that are part of that organization. It's a way of structuring, some of that normal client data. But what's really useful is if I have a client record created here, I can go and create a new engagement directly from the Client Hub. I can choose the template that I want to use, and then also the tax year that I'll be preparing, and I can click to create the engagement, making it really easy, and also keeping all of my engagements centralized, so that whether it's myself as the primary service provider or anyone else on that service team can quickly see all of the assets that have been assigned out to this individual or this organization. In addition to being able to kind of create an engagement from the Client Hub, I also want you to understand from the tax area, you're able to create engagements in bulk just by adding multiple users down here on the second line. I will call out that they'll all be using the same template. So if you have, figured out and standardized your process, you now have the template and you wanted to push it out to your, 40, 50 clients, it's a really good way to do it all in one fell swoop. Once you have the engagement space created, it's really easy to get started. All you have to do is come to Send Agreement Workflow. And this is going to describe some automation we have built behind the scenes, but essentially we're going to send out an engagement letter. And once that is signed, it'll automatically sequence and assign out the rest of the document or information request for our client. I can change the template if I wanted to, but I'm just going to go ahead and move forward with my engagement agreement. And that's going to go out to my client. So again, making it really, really easy, regardless if I'm in the tax solution doing work in bulk, or if I'm in the Client Hub, it's easy to get work done and save some of that time.
Yeah, I think what's really beneficial too, of what Quentin just showed, is showcasing the visibility across team members from that client. I know that we see a lot of people trying to chase down documents. You're reaching out to other service providers like, hey, I don't see this engagement letter inside of the client folder. Where does that live? That way the Client Hub and the tax solution Quentin just showed up and really benefits around that centralization of sharing that information and also the organization of it too. So all of those things will live inside of that containerized space. And then also when you're looking at that client inside the Client Hub, you'll be able to see all those past resources and maybe tax engagements that you've had in the past with them in that view. And then as well as you can connect a lot of those shared folders and documents that's connected to that client too. So really, pulling together, making sure the onboarding is centralized.
It's almost as if the Client Hub becomes that single point of truth.
So we're going to move on to our third area, which is probably the most interesting to all of you guys, is the collecting of client documents. So a huge pain point during engagements, no matter probably what service you're doing, but particularly we're talking about tax today, can be the most time-consuming and error-prone aspects of that client service delivery. I think these three things probably talk to the pain points really well, is first being that incomplete or late submissions. I hear from so many firms that really talk about the hardest part of my job is not the actual accounting part of it. It's just getting the needed information from my clients, and that can be, the most strenuous part that most people haven't solved. So the incomplete or late submissions, so clients often miss those deadlines. Maybe they're only sending you partial documentation, basically really forcing your firms to chase down a lot of that missing documentations like W-2s or receipts. Also really causes those bottlenecks in preparation and delays with the overall engagement timeline. Maybe there's some lack of standardizations in your request and submission methods. So firms may not have a centralized or consistent checklist or templates, leading a lot of confusion about what documents are needed, or maybe even having a description on what those things are. I know I'm guilty of Googling a lot of those form names when I'm working with my accountant because they don't really have any description on what those things are. So I have no idea if I'm related to that or if I need to have those forms submitted. Maybe clients need to respond with questions, or maybe they have incorrect files requiring a lot of that back and forth and slowing down. Maybe they're submitting documents via email, maybe snail mail, secure portals, maybe fax, and sometimes even photos too from their mobile phones, which creates a lot of fragmented, inconsistent intake workflows. And a lot of
love that.
Oh yeah,
the photos.
I'm sure you do. I know I've been yelled at by my tax accountant before. Sorting and organizing a lot of those formats too. Can take a lot of staff time. So that's something to keep in mind. And then lastly, the manual tracking and the follow-up. So if you're relying on spreadsheets still, or anything that's very manual in that form, it's going to require you to manually reach out to your client to probably remind them to submit those forms to keep their service on track. And also just keeping track of all those files too, knowing which ones have been submitted and which ones haven't can take some time just to go through all those documents and follow up with clients. Obviously that's not scalable, results in a lot of inconsistencies in communication, and then just overall management of that client service. So Quentin, so you showcased some of the templates already that we have, but I think the beauty in ShareFile is a lot of around the document organization with those list types. So I'd love for you to showcase what that looks like.
We're in the tax space. I mentioned that we sent out an engagement letter, and once it's signed, that any of the document requests then get assigned out to the client as well. You'll see that that's represented here by these being an open status. But just to show you what some of the things that are being assigned to the client, if I click into any of these document requests like additional sources of income, you'll see that we've gone ahead and enumerated 5 individual items that we're looking to collect. And if I click on an individual item, we can see that it has a due date as well as a description. those are going to be shared out with the client so they know exactly when it's due. And as they click on an item, you get the translation, between 1099 and what that means in real world terms. So it helps to, let the client know exactly what's being asked of them, and even making it simple to understand. So that's kind of how you're able to structure these lists. As I was showing you the outer view here, each of these is essentially a group of items that I'm looking to collect. And clicking into it again, each one of those is the specific item. So each of these requests was automatically sent out to the client. And in the next step of our demonstration, we'll actually show you what it looks like from their perspective. From the tax preparer's perspective, though, I want you to understand that once an item is submitted, it's super easy for me to come in here and review the file. I can click to preview it, and if everything looks good, I can approve the item. Or if this wasn't what I was expecting to receive, I can click to send back and put in a reason for my client of why this wasn't acceptable. That's me communicating with the client without having to switch over to email or phone. But one thing we'll highlight from the client perspective as well is the ability to have a comment stream related to each individual item. So if there is a question, about the self-employment forms, instead of my client having to pick up the phone or email, they can ask me in-app as well. So just trying to, again, simplify some of that client engagement, and keep everything organized as it relates to the specific item that we're talking about.
Amazing. And then you're not searching through maybe a big list of documents they sent through, and you're getting them to submit to the actual area they pertain to. So that's great.
I didn't show it, but I probably should have. One thing that's nice too is once they've submitted all of the files, I can go in and close the request, and in the process notify my client that, hey, I've gotten everything that I was hoping to collect. So again, it's not just for when things go off the rails, but whenever things go exactly how you planned, we can notify your client of that as well.
That's a good call out. And I know in the next demonstration, we'll showcase the client view of that. So you'll see what the client is experienced from their side on these document request list templates that we're showcasing. So we'll move into our last portion of today's demos, which will talk all about client interaction and sort of the experience portion of ShareFile with them. So obviously client interaction can be a critical touch point and a major portion of a tax preparation, because a lot of the work is not necessarily on the accountant, but a lot of the work is on side the client itself to deliver those documents. So those interactions really shape the overall experience and directly impact the firm's ability to really deliver on time, accurately, and compliantly too. So first, touching on sort of the delayed and unresponsive clients. So I think you all can probably agree with this, but you have a lot of clients that don't respond quickly to a lot of those document requests, maybe those e-signature requests for engagement letters, or follow-up questions that you may have with the documents they have submitted. That really slows down the overall engagement process and puts a lot of pressure on firms as those deadlines approach. Maybe there's unclear communication, maybe a lack of transparency with it. So without some of those standardized expectations with the client from the forefront, maybe clients will understand what's needed from them, when it's due, or why it really matters inside of their service. That obviously creates confusion, frustration, and requires sometimes additional back and forth. And then clients don't have that visibility all the time inside of the status of their tax return or engagement. And I think that's one big piece that's a lot of firms are still missing, is when do you notify them that it's taken over, it's complete, we have everything you need, now we're going to be actually working on your return and what that looks like. And that can lead to repeated check-ins, maybe they're pinging you, emailing you, calling you. It really sort of undermines the client's confidence in the firm's processes too, not knowing. And then maybe too many channels, not enough consistency. So maybe the communication happens across all those different touch points we've mentioned before, making it really difficult to track those conversations and ensure consistency. And a lot of those important updates or files can get overlooked or lost, especially during busy season when you're trying to work as fast as you can, but still give the best service you can to your clients. We'll walk through what this looks like inside of ShareFile with Quentin, but something good to call out is that the client users inside of ShareFile itself are unlimited. So no matter how big your firm is, it's something that works really well for our customers is the client component of it and interacting with them in a very safe way.
So from the client perspective, I'm gonna refresh the page real fast, but it's gonna look something like this, right? I got some notifications through email notifying me that I had these document requests. And whenever I signed in, I got this view, which is completely different than that of the tax preparer. From the client's perspective, we've taken away a lot of what we call the complexity of ShareFile and really made it simple, putting what we're asking of them straight in front of their face. As they click into any of the document requests, they can again see that due date that we had set, the long form description of what we're hoping to collect. And it's very easy for them to be able to come in and add files. We'll just do one real fast. Say W2. But as they upload this, right, once the upload is complete, they're able to submit for review. I want to call out that they can add multiple files here. So if you're asking for bank statements January through December, it could be 12 individual files. I also want to call out the comments tab here. Right, I mentioned that this is a way to communicate back and forth with their tax preparer as it relates to the specific item. So if I had a question about the retirement income, I could ask it here. Right, again, making it really easy, letting ShareFile be that place for all of that client portal and client communication. From the perspective of the client too, they want to know who assigned this to them. They can find out by going to the contacts tab. This is especially useful for individuals who may be working with two different tax preparers. For example, somebody could be working with me for their individual return, but working with Stacy on a business return. So it's easy to tell who assigned that specific task out to them by going to the contacts tab. We're going to make it really easy and go ahead and submit this file. And from the perspective of the tax preparer, I just showed you that what it looks like for the process of review. They can go in and preview the file and either approve it or send it back. So it makes it really, really easy item by item to progress through this checklist. The thing that I want you to understand is that we've structured a lot of this automatically from the tax preparer side, but what if there's one-offs or things that weren't necessarily automatically in the template? For example, let's say that my client has gone ahead and provided all of the files, but I want to deliver the return. Prior to delivering that return though, I want to deliver an 8879. Within the tax engagement space, I can come over here and create a request on the fly. And in this case, we're going to do a signature request and choose a template for an 8879. It's really easy for me to send this out to the client. In this case, I'm going to have it automatically populate some of the fields so that it knows what we're populating it with. I'm just going to reference my client. And once I have that referenced, I can go ahead and update the fields. And once that is done, you should see the first name and last name get mapped down to this document automatically. As we go on to the next step and generate it, I'm going to specify who my signers are. So in this case, I want my tax client. And then there's also a signature for myself at the bottom. So I want to go ahead and add myself as a signer here too. So I wanted to call this out and show you this process so you can understand that even for those things that may not have previously existed in the template, you can still do that within the tax engagement space, just on a more one-off basis. Another thing that's worth calling out to here is we are our own e-signature tool, and one thing that differentiates us within the market is we also include knowledge-based authentication at no additional charge. So for anybody who's sent out 8879s before, you'll know that you most likely are going to invoke that KBA. For KBA, we work with a third party to verify the user's identity before they're actually given access to sign the document. So for me as the tax preparer, it was already set up on the template, so I don't even have to worry about remembering to toggle that on the last step. So from there, I went ahead and sent that out for signature, and you'll see that it is showing as an open request right now. Let's pretend that my client has gone ahead and approved the 8879 and I'm ready to deliver the final return. The steps that would occur between here and there. Once they've provided all the files, it was easy for me to come and download these or even save it back to a ShareFile folder. And then once I had all those files and used them to deliver the return, all I need to do is upload it here. And once I have the file uploaded, I can then share it out to my client. And in the process of sharing it to Bobby, I can decide what type of permissions he has, whether I want him to view only, for example, until he signed that 8879, or if I want him to be able to download. In this case, we'll go ahead and say he can have the download rights. And once I have that item shared out, if we hop back to the perspective of my client and refresh, then in the tax returns tab up here, you'll see that return that was delivered. The tax returns tab is going to essentially operate as a vault for your client for all tax returns year over year. So again, simplifying it not only for the tax preparer, but also for all of your clients, now having that secure storage place for all of their documentation. So that was the perspective of the client. So.
Yeah, it's great. I think another good call out too is when he was showcasing, sending that engagement letter, sending that 8879 near the end of the service, is that it's saving to that engagement. So it's still keeping everything very containerized inside of one place. And then you have the option to move those files into maybe a shared folder where you keep maybe an archive of past client work. So a really easy way to find things really quickly and then also keep them in a way that you like to store them too. I just wanted to quickly recap everything that we've gone through today and sort of touch on the key functionality that we showcased inside of ShareFile itself. We touched on a lot of the ready-to-use templates for the tax preparation and then the ways to customize them too. Some of those document request list items that are needed for individual tax prep and business tax preparation, and then some of those questionnaires too. So every firm, I think, does their questionnaires a little bit differently. So having the capability to customize those can come into handy there. And really helping you save up to 4.5 hours per tax return, which really saving a lot of time on the back end during that busy season. We showcase a lot of the simple onboarding workflows, so kicking maybe an engagement letter off into one single place where you're doing that engagement and interacting with that client, and a lot of the built-in information gathering and engagement letters inside of that. So maybe that questionnaire is part of your onboarding process where you're requesting that information that really helps streamline what that onboarding looks like. And then the data and document collection, a really important piece here, showcased the way that we handle it inside of ShareFile, making it very organized and collecting those documents and having those automated notifications, which I don't know if we touched on today, but you're able to set those due dates, and those due dates would have them manually send a notification inside of their client portal, and then also email too to let them know they have outstanding items, which really comes in handy when you don't have to manually poke your clients all the time for those documents. And then the really easy client experience, knowing exactly what's due from them, and it has like basically a checklist inside of their client portal to really showcase that. And then that client portal experience, that single place they know where to engage with you to deliver those documents. It's password protected, making sure that everything that they're giving you usually is very sensitive in nature in those financial documents. So having it kept out of email and in a safe place, helping not only the experience from your side, but also making sure you're keeping your client data safe. We'd love to talk more with you guys, learn more about what your firms are doing, where you're having problems. I encourage you again, if you are new to ShareFile, to sign up for a trial to showcase to see how this would work for your own processes inside of your firms. But sort of check out everything else we have under the sun in ShareFile too, since this was just a little bit of a taste of some of those capabilities. But thank you guys. I really appreciate your time and joining us.